What if the only person who could save a billionaire's empire was the maid who emptied his trash? Nathaniel Cross was minutes away from signing a multi-billion-dollar deal. The cameras were ready, the boardroom full, the champagne already chilled. Then a soft voice whispered from behind his chair, "Don't sign it. They're setting you up." It wasn't a lawyer. It wasn't a consultant. It was the cleaning lady. And that whisper changed everything. Nathaniel Cross had built Crosstech from scratch, from a windowless basement to a towering glass skyscraper in Manhattan. By the age of 39, he wasn't just a CEO. He was one of the youngest billionaires in New York. They called him ruthless, visionary, cold. But even cold men have blind spots. It was a rainy Thursday morning. The final documents for the Verexon merger were laid across the polished oak conference table. Everyone around him was smiling, eager, counting the zeros. Nathaniel was holding a black pen over the dotted line. That's when the door opened. She entered quietly, pushing a cart filled with cleaning supplies. Her name badge read, Camilla R. No one noticed her. No one ever did, except him. As she reached for the trash bin beside his chair, she leaned slightly toward his ear and whispered, so softly it was barely audible, "Don't sign it. They're stealing your company." Nathaniel's fingers froze. The pen slipped from his grip and rolled across the table. He turned sharply, but she was already pushing the cart toward the door, her head down. "Wait," Nathaniel said, standing. The room fell silent. Ellis Grant, his CFO, gave him a look. "Something wrong. Just give me 10 minutes." Without another word, Nathaniel walked out and followed her down the hall. She was near the service elevator when he caught up. "You," he said. "Stop." Camilla turned slowly, her eyes wide but steady. "What did you say in there?" "I said don't sign," she replied. "Because if you do, you'll lose everything." Nathaniel gestured for her to follow him. She hesitated, then nodded. He led her into a small executive break room and shut the door. "Explain." "Now." Camilla clutched the edge of her cart. "I work night shifts. I clean the offices no one pays attention to. But I hear everything. And I overheard Ellis and someone for Verexon discussing hidden clauses. They're using the merger to siphon your equity into a shell corporation registered offshore. On paper, it'll look like you still own Crosstech. But legally, they'll have controlling interest within 90 days. Nathaniel crossed his arms. "That's a bold accusation for a janitor." Camilla didn't flinch. "I'm not just a janitor. I studied corporate law at Columbia. Dropped out when my mother got sick and couldn't afford care. I took this job for the insurance." Nathaniel was speechless. "You have proof?" Camilla nodded. "Screenshots, audio, emails, everything. But if I hand them over, I'll lose my job and my mother loses her treatment." Nathaniel's voice softened. "Bring me everything tonight. 7 o'clock. This room." "If I come," she asked, "will you believe me?" "I'll listen." Back in the boardroom, Ellis raised an eyebrow. "Everything all right?" Nathaniel forced a smile. "I want to review one last clause. We'll reschedule for tomorrow." A quiet storm swept through the room. Verexon's reps whispered among themselves. Ellis looked annoyed but said nothing. Nathaniel kept his expression calm. But inside, his world had begun to crack. That night, at exactly 7 p.m., Camilla returned. She carried a small backpack and wore a navy sweater, soaked from the rain. Nathaniel was already there, leaning against the table. "Let's see it." Camilla pulled out her phone. She played a recording. Ellis's voice came through, distorted but clear. "Once the contract's signed, we move the assets in stages. Nathan will never see it coming. He trusts me too much." Another voice, one Nathaniel recognized as Virexon's VP, chuckled. It'll be over in 90 days. He won't know what hit him. Camila swiped through her photos. Screenshots of altered contract drafts. Clauses redlined at 2 a.m. Transfer statements to shadow accounts. Nathaniel stared in disbelief. She was telling the truth. He looked at her. Why would you risk all this for me? Camila bit her lip. Because you're the only one who ever looked me in the eye. And because no one else will. Nathaniel spent the entire night reviewing everything. At 6 a.m., he locked the door to his office and made 3 phone calls. His lawyer, the SEC, and Internal Affairs. At 9 o'clock sharp, he called an emergency board meeting. When Ellis arrived, he acted surprised. What's this about? You, Nathaniel said coldly, and your betrayal. He laid out the documents, recordings, and evidence. The board was stunned. Ellis turned red, then pale. And then the door opened again. Federal agents stepped in. Mr. Grant, you are under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and breach of fiduciary duty. As Ellis was escorted out, his eyes locked on Nathaniel. You think this ends here? He spat. You're making a mistake. Nathaniel didn't blink. No, I'm finally correcting one. The building buzzed with whispers. The media got wind of the arrest. News vans lined the streets. Nathaniel's face was everywhere. Billionaire betrayed by his right-hand man. But inside Crosstech, something shifted. Nathaniel wasn't just feared anymore. He was respected. For standing up. For doing the right thing. Yet he couldn't stop thinking about Camila. She didn't show up the next day. Or the one after that. He asked HR. She'd resigned. No forwarding address. No explanation. She had disappeared like mist. On Sunday, he drove through the Bronx, window down looking, block by block. He found her in front of a corner pharmacy, holding a paper bag and shielding her mother from the wind. Camila, he called. She froze. Nathaniel got out of the car. You left, he said. Why? She avoided his eyes. Because my part was over. No, he replied. It was just beginning. He glanced at her mother and lowered his voice. I came to say thank you, but I also came to ask for your help. With what? Crosstech is changing, and I need someone I can trust. Someone who speaks truth, even when it's dangerous. Camila raised an eyebrow. You want to hire a former janitor as your advisor? I want to hire the woman who saved $1 billion empire. On Monday morning, the executive floor had a new office with a name on the door. Camila Rivera, Director of Ethics and Oversight. People whispered. Some sneered. Others smiled. Camila walked with her head high. She wore her history like armor, not shame. Nathaniel passed her office, knocking gently. How's your first day? She gave a small smile. Overwhelming. He handed her a cup of tea. You'll get used to it. She stared into the cup. Why me, Nathaniel? Really? He paused. Because you remind me who I used to be. Before I got lost in numbers and margins, you brought me back to the man I wanted to become. Their hands brushed. Neither of them moved. Weeks passed. Camila and Nathaniel fell into a rhythm. Morning strategy sessions. Late-night compliance reviews. Heated debates in glass offices. Quiet laughter by the elevators. He started noticing things. How she tilted her head when she read. How she hummed softly while thinking. She noticed, too, how his shoulders relaxed when she entered. How he offered her the last cookie without thinking. One evening, after a board meeting, they ended up alone on the rooftop garden. Manhattan shimmered below them. Nathaniel leaned on the railing. My father once told me, he said, that trust is the only thing you can't buy back. Camila nodded. Your father was right. He turned to her. You made me want to be a man worthy of that trust. Camila's breath caught. Nathaniel. He stepped closer. I think about you. Every hour. She didn't pull away. I think about you too, she whispered. It wasn't planned. There was no music. No perfect moment. Just quiet. And closeness. Nathaniel lifted her chin gently. Their eyes met. And then they kissed. Soft. Hesitant. But electric. When they pulled apart, neither spoke. But both knew everything had changed. The next morning, everything felt different. The air in the office seemed heavier. Words held more weight. Their glances across the boardroom burned longer than they should, but they kept it professional, at least on the surface. Camila dove into her work, revising outdated ethics policies, calling out conflicts of interest, restructuring teams. Nathaniel watched her navigate his empire with fearless integrity. She wasn't just fixing cross-tech. She was healing it. One Thursday afternoon, a woman stormed into the cross-tech lobby. Tall, blonde, designer heels. Her name was Vanessa Langston, Nathaniel's ex-fiancée. She had left months before, just before the Virexin deal. Said she was tired of chasing ghosts of ambition. But now she was back, and she didn't come quietly. I heard your company nearly collapsed, she said in his office. You could have called me. Nathaniel folded his arms. You walked away. Vanessa looked around. And now your new assistant is running the place. She's not my assistant, he said firmly. She's the reason I still have a company. Vanessa's lips curled. You're falling for the help. Nathaniel's jaw clenched. I'm falling, he said, for someone who stood by me when no one else did. Later that night, Camila sat alone in her apartment. She stared at her reflection, Vanessa's words echoing in her head. You don't belong in his world. She looked at her hands, calloused from years of hard work. Her clothes, simple, practical. She had no trust fund, no legacy, no famous last name, just integrity, and a heart she hadn't meant to give away. Was it enough? The next day, she asked Nathaniel to meet her in the rooftop garden. He arrived minutes later, jacket tossed over one shoulder. You okay? He asked. I need to ask you something, she said, and I need you to be honest. He nodded. If I wasn't the woman who saved your company, if I was just Camila, the cleaning girl, would you still feel the same? Nathaniel stepped forward. I didn't fall for the title, he said. I fell for the woman who stood alone in a room full of power and chose to speak truth. Camila blinked back tears. And if tomorrow everything went back to how it was, if the world forgot what I did, would you still stand beside me? He reached for her hand. Always. 2 weeks later, Nathaniel hosted the company's annual gala. It was black tie, red carpet, photographers everywhere. But when he arrived, his arm wasn't linked with a model or mogul. It was Camila, dressed in a sleek, dark gown, hair swept back, eyes steady. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. But Nathaniel didn't flinch. He introduced her to investors, executives, senators. This, he said proudly, is the future of cross-tech. The night of the gala unfolded like a dream. Camila stood at the edge of the ballroom, watching the elite swirl around her in glittering gowns and polished tuxedos. Nathaniel found her, 2 glasses in hand. Still feel like you don't belong? He asked. She smiled softly. A little. He handed her a glass. Good, because you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to change the room. They toasted quietly, but across the room, someone watched. Gerald Knox, a board member loyal to Ellis Grant, approached the press with a smirk. She was the janitor, he whispered. Now she runs the place. Makes you wonder what she had to do to get there. By morning, tabloids screamed headlines, sleeping her way to the top. From mop to mansion, the Cinderella of Wall Street. Camila's phone exploded with calls. Hate, doubt, cruelty. Nathaniel called an emergency press conference. And for the first time, he didn't speak first. Camila did. She stood before flashing cameras, her voice calm. My name is Camila Rivera. I was once a cleaning woman. I scrubbed floors beneath your shoes. I emptied your trash. And I listened. She paused. I warned this company of betrayal. I exposed fraud. And I stayed silent when I was thanked behind closed doors, because I thought that was enough. Her voice grew stronger. But today I speak publicly, not to defend my dignity, but to remind you that truth doesn't wear designer shoes. Integrity doesn't have a trust fund. Nathaniel stood behind her, his expression unwavering. I didn't fall in love with a title, she said. I fell in love with a man who learned how to listen, and he loved me not despite my past, but because of it. The room fell silent, and then applause. Real, loud, earned. In the weeks that followed, Cross-Tech's shares rose, not because of market strategy, but because people believed in the story, in resilience, in courage, in redemption. Nathaniel and Camila became a symbol, not of scandal, but of transformation. They didn't hide. They didn't run. They led together. 1 year later, on a quiet autumn morning, Camila stood in a classroom at Columbia University. She wasn't a student this time. She was a guest speaker. The girl once overlooked now taught ethics to the future. And Nathaniel? He waited outside with 2 coffees, and a smile only she could melt. As they walked together toward the river, he turned to her. Do you still wonder if you belong? Camila laughed. I don't wonder anymore. He squeezed her hand. Good, because I was always the one who didn't belong, until you walked into my life. This isn't just a story about a billionaire and a maid. It's a story about what happens when someone dares to speak truth to power. It's about listening, about seeing the unseen. And it's about love, unexpected, uninvited, but absolutely undeniable. Moral of the story. Sometimes, the person you overlook is the only one who sees the whole picture. And sometimes, love doesn't knock. It whispers from behind a trash bin.